This podcast may contain adult themes.
This podcast is for entertainment purposes only.
The views and opinions in this podcast are expressly our own.
Honestly, every time I try to do something fun or exciting, you make it not that way.
Is it okay if I kick your boss's ass? That won't affect your workplace chemistry, will it?
All right, who did this? I'm not mad. I just want to know who did it so I can punish them.
When I get to the workplace, I like to fuck shit up.
Welcome to Let's Break Up, Toxic Workplace Stories, hosted by me, Nicola.
And me, Gina, both with many years working in corporate roles. Come along as we interview some awesome guests from around the world about their experiences with toxic workplaces.
Sharing lessons learned and providing safe, supportive place to share their stories with those who might be experiencing similar situations.
Each week, we will provide tips and ways to identify some of the challenges associated with toxic workplaces.
In today's episode,
so let me see what the prompts are here. Are you excited, Megs?
I am. Not even my therapist knows about a few of the things I'm going to talk about. So,
ooh, juicy.
I know.
I know.
Trust me, he already thinks I have like PTSD. So, like, ooh,
you probably do, but you know what? That's cool.
Yeah, we've got PTSD.
We absolutely have PTSD. We're already doing way better than we expected. So I think your story is going to kind of bring us over the edge because it is so fucking juicy.
I know. I was thinking about
it's like the Stefan like SNL thing where he's like, it's got everything. It's got the police. It's got lawyers. It's got cyberbullying.
When I was filling out the document of the questions, it was like, what's involved? And I'm like, someone
everything.
tried to with a car.
Yeah. Potential manslaughter, like so much.
I swear to God.
Wait. No, don't spoiler alert this for me because I can't cope. Do not spoiler alert.
Don't spoiler alert because
I won't.
Shit. Come now.
Okay, welcome to Let's Break Up, Toxic Workplace Stories. This is season 1, episode 4. Very exciting. Today, we have the pleasure of chatting with one of my most favorite people on the whole planet, Megan, and her story is wild. It has got everything. And I think I lived this with you and through you, Megan. So I already know all the spoilers, but do you want to just give a couple of some fun words that will be coming up?
Cops, run over, rioting, death threats.
Cyberbullying.
No, there was cyberbullying, definitely. There was a whole Instagram about me.
All right, so why don't you give us a little quick rundown of your background? Like, what is it that you do? How long have you been doing it? And how long did you stay at this position that you're going to walk us through?
Okay. I've been a teacher for 8 years now. Primarily, I used to do like mostly English, but now I'm into like math, science, all that stuff. 6th grade is my spot that I like to teach most.
How old are 6th graders for us international people?
6th graders are usually 10 or 11, or in my case, some of them were 13. It was in the heart of the worst area of New York, I would say.
Yes, it did pay well. And it was also in the worst area of New York City, not just New York, because to people who are not from the city, like me and Megan, you say New York and they're like, oh, where? And you obviously mean New York City, but other people will be like, oh, where? Utica? Albany? And you're like, no, I've never even been there.
These names mean nothing to me.
Good.
It's cool. To the Americans and East Coast people, they'll get it.
Okay.
All right. So, well, that's okay. Nicola sent me a picture and it said Christchurch. I was like, oh my God, he's in a cult. And she's like, no, that's a city near me. Because I was like, Nicola, run. This is another cult.
Yes, please.
Yeah, because Nicola loves a good cult without knowing it.
Yeah, I do love me a cult.
Mm-hmm. All right. So Smegs, tell us, what was the situation you're in, like when you started looking for this new job that you ended up getting into?
Okay. So I was already working in New York City. I wanted to stay with like 6th grade. I found that the best salaries you could get usually are in predominantly bad areas, quote unquote. The work is going to be longer and harder.
How much longer? Like, what's a standard hour for you? Like, what standard hours?
It was about, you had to be there at 7 on the dot.
AM?
And if you're AM, if you were late by 3 minutes, they docked you a full half day. So one time I came at 7:03, with my co-teacher that I went through everything with. And they were like, okay, your doctor. We're like, okay, then we'll come back at like 11:30. And they were like, no. And we're like, so we have to work got it. So yeah, about 7 a.m. it starts to about 4:35-ish. And you only get like one break a day, really.
And on top of that, your commute was pretty intense.
My commute was 3 hours combined on a good day.
You were taking public transportation. So you would have to get up at like really early, like 4:30 or something.
5.
So tell us when there was the first red flag.
No, the interview process was actually really great, but the interview was really good. It had like 8 of the admin on a Zoom with me. I had to do a demo thing. They were all about preaching family and community.
Everything was good. So what was your first red flag?
My first red flag was, so for that first year I worked here, it was all on Zoom. And every morning we had to be on Zoom so first year was Zoom, second year was in person. First year I was cool. I was doing it like from my bed, from my office, whatever.
That was the height of the pandemic.
Yeah. So we had like morning meetings at like 6:55 in the morning. So 5 minutes before the students arrived. Our principal at the time, she could never figure out how to open the Zoom and then would blame everybody and say like, you guys weren't in there. And we we're all just like, what are you talking about? And then we realized she was definitely a little bit crazy because she would open up the Zoom for everybody and already be mid-song. And then one time she opened the Zoom just for me, did not let anyone else in, left them in the waiting room, just me, and just wanted to talk and show me her house. Anyway.
What was her house like? Was it cluttered?
It was nothing extra. It was a regular
Nothing to write home about.
I was just like, that's cool. So that's your kitchen. Like, so
did you have like dildos out on the tabletop?
No, nothing weird, except another time she did Zoom call me and she wanted me to show me her son that was like 19 or 20. And you could tell he didn't want to be in the camera and he was like shirtless. And I was just like, so that's your son. You look like him. It was I felt so uncomfortable with this woman. The craziness that was her in general was I found out later on, she would hold people back from the Zoom meetings and be like, I have a question to ask. Don't tell Megan though. And she would ask them like, do you think me and her look alike?
Wait, what?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Okay, and this woman was she was like 45, short, Puerto Rican woman, like olive complexion, dark hair. We looked nothing alike.
Well, describe yourself a little bit because people can't see you on the podcast.
Yeah.
You're gorgeous. No, Megan is like one of those pinup kind of girls. Like
she's got great teeth.
Great
First thing I noticed. They are
great
just
hair. She's had music videos done about her.
No,
just one. Guess how many music videos people have done about me?
Like fuck all.
Yeah, fuck all.
But so she would hold people back from the Zoom calls, and like 3 or 4 people she would ask, including who went on to become one of my best friends, who was my co-teacher at the time. She would ask, do you think, me and Miss R look alike? Do you think, but her hair's kind of like mine when she curls it, but like very, very, she was making people uncomfortable to the point that they were like, we don't know why she's telling us not to tell you. And then about a month later after that, she came into work on Zoom, had red straightened hair and green contacts.
Did she get a tattoo like yours?
Did she what?
Did she get tattoos like yours?
No, but she did tell me one time.
Okay, wait, so now she's mimicked your image. She's likened herself to you.
What? Yes,
I feel
100%.
like single white female vibe.
So I actually might still have the text from her in my phone. She got my number a while ago and she would just leave me very strange voicemails. And at one point she messaged me a picture of me, her, and my co-teacher and cropped my co-teacher out. You could still see her arm around me. Like it was just me and her. She sent it like 3 times in a row. This is after she left.
So she left after your first year.
I was still teaching there.
Is this was it like an insecurity thing or was it like an obsession thing?
I think I don't want to be like, oh yeah, she's obsessed with me, but like it was very single white female at times. And the day I actually met her was the last day of school. We all had to go to the field and officially meet our kids. And she was there and she was like, Megan, get my car. She drove, I swear on my dog's life, she drove onto the field in like her BMW and it was like, Megan, get into the car. Called over.
Did you stupidly get into the car?
Did she
con
you with candy into the car? Hey, Megan.
No, but she just kept saying like, Megan, get in the car repeatedly. And I'm the type of person that like, it's going to be a good story. So let's do it. If it means I might almost die, like, let's do it. Like, I don't like things like that. Like, I'm not a thrill seeker, but I was also like, I need to know what this is about. This is crazy.
Curiosity killed the cat.
So she was like, get in my car. She drives over and everyone's like, what the hell is this? And then she's like, Megan, get in my car. So I literally went like this to my co-teacher at the time because she knows. And she was like, I'm not getting in the car. And I was like, get in the car, please get in the car. And I was like, oh, make for a good story. And she was like, okay, got it. So we get in her car. I'm in the passenger seat. My co-teacher is in the back seat. And she starts telling me, like, Megan, I just want you to know, I know there are rumors around me. I'm not a homophobic. I love the gay community. I'm not sexist. I'm not racist. Weird stuff. Meanwhile, I've heard none of these rumors. I think she just like wants to preach that she was a good person to me. So then she said,
did she think that you were a lesbian?
It's very possible. Because usually when I go to like a job, I've learned the hard way where like I don't usually give any of my personal information or anything like that. It's just
Who gave you that advice?
You. So when it comes to things like that, I'm always like, yep, it's true. I live alone.
You're like, let me channel my inner Gina.
Yes. It's like, it's none of your business. But she knew nothing about me. So it's very possible. But then she said the weirdest thing, which was, I have more to say to you, but I can't because we have a witness in the car. And then slowly turned around to my co-teacher. My co-teacher was like, hi, I'm here. My name is, and she was like, oh yeah, I know you're there. That's why I can't say anything.
What?
Yes. So she drives us back to the school and we get out and she's like, oh,
Okay. So just to confirm, this is your manager.
This is my boss.
It's the principal of the entire school, right? So she's basically, you directly report.
Hold on. So are you
ultimately to
kidnapped
her.
at this point? Are you kidnapped in
So
the car?
that's the word I love to use. I didn't want to say it. When me and my old co-teacher talk, we're always like, hey, remember that time? Like it'll be 7 a.m. and we'll both be at work and I'll be like, hey, remember when we were kidnapped? And she's like, yep, haha. And that's our conversation. So we get out of the car and she's doing something in the office. We're like, okay, we're gonna walk back. Meanwhile, it was end of June. It was like 88 degrees out in the middle of New York City.
What's that, like 20 something degrees Celsius?
Yes, it was
hot.
Extremely hot. Yeah. So we were like, we're gonna walk back. Meanwhile, I'm already sweating from being out of the car for 2 minutes. And she's like, no, get back in the car, get back in the car. So we get back in the car. And then she was like, oh, so like, like nothing's wrong. I'm not like a bad person. Keeps preaching her case. And then said the weirdest thing was like, it's not like I embezzle money from the school or anything. And then just proceeded to laugh maniacally at her own joke, aka confession.
So wait, time out. Did any of that end up surfacing in real life? Like, was she embezzling? Was she saying sexist? Any kind of, did anything actually come of that?
Yes, eventually it came out that she was homophobic.
So she was essentially just projecting so that
she was just projecting. Yeah,
or she was like trying to be strategic and get into your ear, kind of. Yeah, exactly. Like control the narrative.
Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, I think she was just scared I heard something, didn't want like me to think anything.
So weird. Okay, so that was the first red flag, and that was after being there for a year, correct?
Yes, this was my first year.
Okay, so we've been here for a year. You've been Zoom teaching because #COVID life. Yes. And also my kudos to teachers during COVID. Bless
that was rough.
Like that was tough times.
You handled it really well, Megan.
So you've taught for a year, you've done it all mainly online. You haven't really dealt with all these people. And this is like the first time everybody's getting together after COVID.
And that's when you get kidnapped.
And you get kidnapped on the first day.
Yes. So I get out of the car. She rushes back over like where the fence, basically, like over the grass, drops me off. My co-teacher only says goodbye to me, not her. It's wild because I've never met any of these people. They were looking at me and my co-teacher like, what did you go and talk to her about? You know what I mean? It felt like I was like a rat.
So it kind of set you up for failure because people probably thought that you had like some sort of in with this person.
1,000,000%. Yeah.
Where in reality, they'd like essentially kidnapped you on the first day.
So I already had an idea that she was crazy. And then it turned out she was fired, I think, because those rumors came
they were actually true. I think the majority of your story, though, takes place in your second year, right? When you're actually in person.
Yes. And this principal is sort of involved with that too, because she doesn't let me go.
She comes back. She makes a cameo, folks.
I had to eventually change my number actually for a few reasons, but her. So she starts teaching another school. She will not stop calling me and offering me the world to go and teach with her. To which I was like, no. So anyway, so I start my second year in person, me and my co-teacher together again in person. It was lovely. We had this crazy, how do I even describe him? He was in charge of students with behavioral problems.
Okay. which is an admirable role. That's
Yeah,
a
I'm
challenging
not-
role to
I'm not
take.
gonna
Was
say
he
the
like a
title-
guidance counselor kind of?
He made more money than God, like as much money as the principals. So our principals at the time were 2 teachers who only worked 2 years combined, and they became the principals. So they were teachers who became principals, which sounds good in reality. Like when I first heard that, I was kind of like, all right, they don't have much experience, but they know what it is to be a teacher.
In the trenches, like, so they'll
Right.
get it. Not to make it about us, Nicola, but that was very similar to our situation where Nicola and I had a lot more
Experience wasn't there.
experience
Yeah.
than the people who we're reporting to. Well, I can see you're making this decision, but I know because I've lived through that this is gonna like backfire. It's kind of that kind of thing.
And you almost
Yeah.
have to feel a little bit sorry for those people because
Yeah.
they don't have the capacity to make the right decisions yet.
Exactly. But you know what the thing is, for me, it's a matter of like, if you don't know how to do it, then learn it, right? Like you have the whole
Or
summer.
ask for help.
Right. You're given this big salary increase. You have a full summer to figure it out. And also, if you don't feel like you're up to it, then don't do it, because the people that will suffer are the people under you, and most importantly, the students. Yeah. And the 2 people who were the new principals, 2 women, they were, oh my God, just bad attitudes. Just when I first heard, I was like, oh, because I knew it was going to be bad for me.
So just like to speed up, like this year was wild, and I only lived it through phone calls and FaceTimes and so on and so forth. But I remember, I mean, it is insanity. So I think you should just buckle up right now, everyone. So what was the first thing that happened your second year that you were like, hold up?
I mean, the kids were crazy as usual, but that's normal. I could deal with crazy children. It's crazy adults. So I had the guy in charge of kids and behavior. He thought he was an up and coming rapper, but really he just had like 2 songs on SoundCloud, which were the worst things I've ever heard. And one of them was a rap about the school, and he would play it over the loudspeaker every day, apparently. And he would just like walk. He had the craziest outfits, like lime green matching 3-piece suits. He'd come in with like a bedazzled top hat. No one said anything. I felt like, me and my co-teacher, we felt like we were crazy. Like no one else saw it. All the women were obsessed with him. He was hooking up with 3 people at the same time at our job.
At the workplace. So he's
Yes.
banging 3
Yes.
people that are
People.
co-workers.
Yes. And one of them went crazy and screamed at him in the mobile hallway because she found out. But every day I came in just like, what's going to happen to him?
So he was basically your first red flag for the second year.
Yeah, in the second year, definitely. Other than the
Okay.
lack of, administration and control, yes. So yeah, this is what happened. So it was the week Halloween. I had my hair in braids, and me and my co-teacher dressed alike or whatever. And he was like, I'm gonna take a picture of you guys. And took the picture of us, and it took like 20 seconds, like way too long. And then it was just a picture of like me, basically. And then he sent it to me later. And I was like, what's up with people sending me pictures of myself?
This
Yeah.
is bizarre. Like, why are we taking photos of you? Firstly, unless it's for a professional situ, like, are we sharing it in the school newsletter that you guys
There's no
did like a
newsletter.
cool?
Was it on like the school
outfit?
Instagram?
No,
Okay.
it was just for
Okay.
him.
So he's
Because
taking
then,
pictures of you, and that's odd.
because he's like in charge of all this, and he's technically a member of admin, so above me, it was like, okay, if he just wants a picture of me and my co-teacher, let's do it. Let's show some school spirit. Whatever, place of power. So all this time we all had each other's numbers because if something happened, we had to like call up on admin. So randomly he would text me, be like, looking good today, blah, blah, blah. Like compliments that I would ignore because it was so awkward and would be sent at like 9:30 in the morning in the middle of like my math lesson. I would ignore it. Me and my co-teacher were like, let's just pretend like we didn't see it. Or sometimes I'd be like, yeah, no. And like, or I'd see him in person and be like, I'm not, like I'm with somebody, or I'm not interested. I've had to say to him a few times.
Did he ever like formally ask you out or say like we should get together or anything like that?
No, but one time I got like my period at school, and I really needed like sweats or something, and he was in charge of athletics also because he made more money than God. And he took me downstairs into a room that he said had like sweats and athletic gear, and he handed me a pair of these little short shorts for like the 3rd graders. And I was like, no, I need sweats. You said you had sweats. And then
Sir, where are the sweats?
where are the sweatpants? I was promised. And then he did this like weird thing where he like stood against the door, and he was in like these track pants, like gray sweatpants, and like showed me that he was like turned on. Like he didn't like he didn't show himself, but he like outlined it with his hand. And I was kind of like, where are those sweatpants?
Did you tell anyone about this?
So the principal, one of them was head of HR also. So everything I went to her went nowhere.
Wild.
Yeah.
But I think
What an
it's very
abuse of
weird that
power,
they
though.
wouldn't have a this is like a school, like they're right. So like you would expect them to have even like a part-time HR person.
Yeah. It was the principal.
And that's
Okay,
so
but also, okay, now
incestuous.
I'm thinking ahead now as well. And like, you know, in New Zealand, and probably Australia as well, we've got a rule that if you are working with children or you are working with vulnerable people, you have got a police clearance, all of that's important stuff. So like, is there none of these checks?
No, there's fingerprinting, things like that. And just to fast forward a tiny bit on this guy, I found out from a teacher who quit the year before when I was still working there, Zoom wise, that he has changed his name. So what he uses is a pseudonym. And he was arrested for kidnapping a child. So
Wait, before he got this position or during or after?
So I found this out, right? I found this out as the insanity was happening that I'm about to get into. I found this out that he kidnapped his friend's little girl and SWAT had to come and knock on his door. So he went into a three-piece suit and had his friends record it and spun the narrative, which was not the case. It was because he kidnapped a child. And
do we know if the child was okay? Because I know when I listen to podcasts, like sometimes they'll mention a dog or a child and I want follow-up on that.
Yes, like, are they still alive? No, the kid was fine.
Oh, thank God.
So nothing, so he didn't do anything. I mean, yeah, what he did was absolutely wrong, but he didn't do anything further wrong with or to her.
No, but his whole background was expunged somehow. He was
How? Oh my God,
He probably sued the police department.
Unpeeling back like the deep underbelly of New York policing?
I don't know, but I do know that his name is not his real name. I've since found out his real name. I did a lot of background. I turned into Gina for this. And then I found out that the reason, so him and the new principal who was head of HR,
I feel like we're going to have like a diagrammatic
Exactly.
representation.
Yeah, we're gonna need the organizational chart.
Yeah, we need like an we got to post an organizational chart to Instagram because like fucking hell, like I'm following this, but I'm curious to know how everyone else is going to follow this shit.
I'm going to call the guy who's in charge of behavior Mr. X.
Okay.
And then
so Mr. X's name when you met him was not his
real name,
birth certificate name.
So technically he's Mr. XY.
Yes, exactly.
Right. So he was born Mr. X and then he changed it prior to coming to your school to XY.
Right. And the reason why he changed it was
because of this kidnapping thing.
And I found out that him and the HR principal we had, Mrs. Krabs, we could call her, they were friends. They were friends and they worked at an old
prior to taking the position.
She was fired. And a month later, he was fired too. And she brought him onto this job, didn't do fingerprinting on him because they knew that New York City would flag it.
But now also, he's also dipping in a number of different vaginas with his.
So he's sexually inappropriate.
So he's sexually inappropriate.
Like
and
across the board.
Is he now like shagging the HR chick as well? Like,
so
this is going?
I have a theory that yes. But no proof, but I mean,
come on,
so
they got fired together. So I'm guessing there was something inappropriate that unfolded. And now we're at a new school.
With that theory.
Together.
But also she could have been fired if it came out that she offered him the job knowing his background and then going around it. That's certainly fireable as well.
It's possible. But the thing is that we work at charter schools and charter schools are at will employees. You could be terminated anytime. You could leave anytime. There's no like,
you don't really need a reason.
Yeah, there's no really exchanging of hands for that. It's like, so basically charter schools have their own rules and they could kind of go around things very easily.
But they do pay well, charter schools.
They pay so well.
Yeah.
So is a charter school like a private school or is it a public school? Like what's
charter school is like a private school. It's one that basically you make your own rules. You have to get it approved first. Like
it's non-denominational. It's not. So it's not like when you have private schools in America, typically they're like Catholic or Jewish, or there's some kind of religious affiliation or something to that effect.
Okay.
Ultimately, but a charter school is, I think it's like almost, I feel like it's a public-private school because it is
Yeah.
funded somewhat publicly. However, there's more of a difficult sort of screening process for the kids. Like you have to be somewhat exceptional, but then
Yeah.
they're also funded by like rich people.
Yes, because it looks good also. It's a tax.
Right. So
write-off.
it's sort of a public and private thing. It's like a publicly funded private school in some ways.
Okay, I'm following. I'm glad we
Okay.
clarified that for people who don't know, like me.
Before you go on, Megan, but that's why they're able to circumvent the rules because they're not fully publicly funded, not like a public school where
So they don't have the same checks and balances that let's
right
say a
there's
public
no like
school would have,
Department of
where we would have
Education
flagged the fingerprints.
necessarily.
Yeah.
That's checking up on the teachers and so on and so forth.
Oh,
This
and
is
by the way, I found out
terrifying.
that he did not attain any
Accreditation,
credentials?
accreditations for
no
Accreditation, degradation.
he graduated high
he
school.
wasn't qualified.
No, he wasn't. He went well for a multitude of reasons, but he went to high school, graduated, went to one year or one semester of college, dropped out. So
One
he's
class.
never been around children in a teaching capacity. Admin was all kind of like just a bunch of people who were terrible and just like very power hungry, very.
And money hungry, you have to imagine, right?
Yeah. The day before Halloween or the whatever it was, one of my students threw a desk at my co-teacher.
Like lifted a desk.
Yes, I
Loved
wasn't.
the desk.
Now, this was normal in the school I was in. Like there was a lot of fights and violence, like at least 2 or 3 fights during a school day. So this girl got really mad. She like launched a desk. It almost hit my co-teacher. I was in the next room. My co-teacher is now calling Mr. X on the phone because he's in charge of this. He didn't pick up. So she yelled to me in the hallway. I was the next room over. I like ran in and was like, what's wrong? And I had to like help her out. Then I called him and he picked up for me. And I was like, hey, she needs your help. Like a girl threw a goddamn desk at someone. And he was like, oh yeah, I did. Oh yeah, okay. He handled it. She was sent back to class 20 minutes later. Every Friday we had a faculty meeting at the end of the day. And it was bullshit. It was complete insanity. It was just like, let's waste your time. So we were there and he was like, I want this place to be. He was always like just preaching on a soapbox. And I remember that day he had on a sweater that on the back of it had his whole slam poetry eulogy at his dead grandmother's funeral that he wrote with a picture of her on the front.
Was it crocheted or was it an applique? Or was it screen
not.
printed?
But the thing, he was so full of himself. I want you to think he was like, he went to like, I don't know.
And he's
state-
wearing the bedazzled top hat. I'm
Yeah.
just painting a picture here for.
Wait, he was?
you know.
That was part of the ensemble?
No, sadly not that day.
Oh God, because
Yeah, but this guy, I'm imagining this guy with a bedazzled top
Chef's
hat.
kiss.
No.
Now he's got a sweater on with his dead nana on the front
Yeah.
and his slam poetry embroidered on the back.
So
What
he
shoe?
went-
Can we go down to the shoes? Because I need a picture of the
Oh,
shoes. Is
they
he
were-
tall,
they were-
short?
He's about 5'11", 6 foot.
Okay.
Yeah, he thought he was all muscular. He wasn't. He was just regular. And he always wore like Nikes and stuff. Like he never dressed.
So he wore
didn't
like
wear
streetwear.
horses. Yes.
Because he's
Streetwear.
got a hard on in his fucking sweatpants.
Exactly.
Charlie the Chocolate
Pre-boys.
Oh
Factory,
my God.
sexual
sorry.
assaulting idiots
Oh my God,
in positions
actually,
of power.
That is exactly how I imagine this person.
Charlie the
is
Chocolate
like Willy
Factory?
Wonka. So let's call him, you know what? We're giving him a new name. His name is
name.
now Willy Wonka.
Willy
Willy
Wonka.
Wonka.
Let's go Willy Wonka.
Okay, so you take us back. You're at this meeting and he's
So we're at this meeting.
proselytizing.
He's basically like, he's like, oh, rest in peace, grandma. Like he's so out of his mind. He's talking to us about like, we're a family. We have to rely on each other more. If you have problems, you have to speak up because the teachers there were not very qualified. Other than me and my co-teacher and a few others, they were like first year teachers and they were very overwhelmed. They were dropping like flies. They weren't allegedly asking for help. So he was like, you know, you guys are suffering and the kids suffer, blah, blah, all that. So my co-teacher, she's in a mood. She usually is very, very put together, very calm. She's like opposite of me basically. And she raised her hand and was like, Mr. Willy Wonka, you know, actually I called you today and you didn't pick up until Megan called you. And I really need your help. So what you're saying is not actually true. And he lost his goddamn mind. He stood up, you know, this is after his whole spiel about like, we're a family. And she was like, I'm just saying like, you didn't pick up today. And He was like, how dare you, start screaming and shouting at her. And she just slowly pulls out her phone and is like, if you want, I could just show everybody that I called you like twice. And then I was like, yeah. And then he was like, he just really like cursing at us, cursing at me and her at this point. She's
So actual verbal abuse.
Meanwhile, this
In front
the
of the entire
in front of
like school.
all 40 staff except for 2 who were absent. All of the staff were there for this.
I
You know,
remember you calling me about this.
yeah.
You're like, Gina, it was
Okay,
insane.
wait. Now, okay, let's dial that back for a second. So you are being fucking yelled at. You're being dressed down essentially in front of an entire faculty. How are you feeling in that moment? Like, what is going through your mind in that moment?
In this moment, I'm very, if you're like, I have a handful of friends and that's it. I'm very like, my circle is very small, but the people that I'm friends with, like I will destroy.
Ride or die.
Like, if anyone talks bad about Gina, it's over. Like nothing gets me more than someone I love being yelled at or hurt, and I'm there. So at this point, I'm like seeing red, but I'm sitting there and I'm just like, let me calm her down first. So I'm like, hey, look, he's staring at us. Don't look. At the end of this meeting, stay close by me. There's a chance that he won't want to mess with me, but like, do not leave my sight. Like, do not, after the meeting, we're beelining, just follow me. He's
So
literally
did you feel
staring at us.
threatened at this point, Megan? Like,
Of
what?
course.
You
Of
did.
course, he was telling us to shut up. He was saying that what we're saying wasn't true. He's calling us liars over a phone call. So yeah, it was one of those things that I already was super miserable at this job, but I didn't know what was to come of this. So this was like the best part of my job. This was like the high times. So meeting ends, he's staring at us. It's awkward. He's just, oh, and at one point he's screaming at us, and one of the principals stands up and puts her hands gently on his chest and it's like, Mr. Willie Wanker, calm down. Instead of like, get out of here. Instead of don't do that.
Or
It's like,
let's call the police.
yes, he was allowed to do whatever he wanted in this place. And this is why he had such a big head, because he could do so much.
I
What
thought it
I
was
did-
so that he could wear the bedazzled hats.
Yes, exactly.
And
So
the
what I
gray
didn't know
sweatpants.
before this was I did not know that the principal was also his friend, the HR woman. So for
Sure.
2 weeks before this, me and my co-teacher were sending in complaints, like formal complaints, saying that we've seen him manhandle students. He showed
Oh.
one of our students against the wall outside of our room when we were teaching. And there are cameras. So we're like, check the cameras for this time. I had the exact time. I texted her, everything. Never went anywhere.
You can't
took
have a
hit.
6-foot man manhandling children. Sorry, as a
I'm sorry,
parent,
but
I'm
unless you're
coming for
tending
you.
to a child, you shouldn't be putting your hands on other people's children. Period.
Yeah.
Sure
Unless
not.
it's in self-defense.
It was crazy. And me and her went to the board. We went everywhere and they just weren't hearing it.
They
And
just
then,
like swept it under the rug.
yeah. And a day before this happened, actually, I found out he was texting one of my students who just lost her father about 6 months prior. And he was like, you know, I could be like a dad role to you. You look really pretty today, like late night texts. And she told me about it. And I left the classroom with my co-teacher and I called the mom and was like, are you aware this is happening? She was like, what?
Oh my God, how inappropriate.
She went to the board, she complained. Nothing came of it either. So I didn't know at the time though that HR was good friends with him. So basically
So they
when I
were
was
protecting
sending
him.
it, they were ripping it up. Correct.
Right. They were going to protect him.
Yeah. And then the board would send me back emails saying like, oh, we're looking into this. We promise we're looking into this. And we are just kind of like, what is happening here? So then when he got at us during that meeting, I was like, this guy is so unhinged. And the way he was getting at us was like, this is deeper than that. And I looked at her and I was like, he knows we've been complaining about him.
Oh no.
You know, you just know when someone looks at you. And
Yeah,
you know
it's like
something.
shark eyes. It's like targeted shark eyes.
Yes. And I'm like, no one's gonna look at me like that except for my mother. So stop, look the other way. Like, don't.
This
So
is a
yeah, so
fucking
we-
roller coaster.
Yes. So we're
I
leaving.
know. I already have like PTSD and I'm living through it the
I'm,
second
like,
time.
so
Can you
like-
imagine, Megan?
my eyes actually hurt from like.
I'm gonna send this to my therapist and be like, by the way.
Can we just pause here for a second and remind people that if this podcast is something you enjoy, we would love to hear from you.
You can find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Let's Break Up Toxic Workplace Stories.
Sharing and subscribing really helps us feel validated.
So we leave the meeting and we're leaving and he cuts between her and I. And I like wedge myself back, so I'm still next to her. And he was like, next time you come for me, I'm going to be the one typing an email. And she was like, what? And he was like, and I'm going to tell them that you're not sober on the job. I'm going to tell them that you swear on everything. I'm going to tell them that you drink on the job.
This person was sober on the job. There
Definitely.
was
Yeah. Me and her
nothing-
were always sober. I mean, first of all, we've been teachers for years, her and I. Like, we know how, and we're like, what? So then he starts yelling it to all staff. He goes, Miss R and Nana, they're not sober on the job and they're around our kids. They're unsafe. When I tell you, I lost my mind in that moment. So by the way, everyone is still in the room. Not one soul has left. So we're talking 40, 45 people were there, including my bosses who were standing there. I look over at them. They're laughing in the corner watching. One of me and my co-teacher's friends went over them and was like, this isn't a joke. Can you go over there? Because he's about to
unload on
like,
us. And not in a fun
physically
way.
assault this person.
So he starts, so they go up to him, he starts storming away. I just saw red and I saw her starting to cry, and that got me even angrier. And I yelled over to him through the cafeteria. No one's left yet. He's the only person that's tried to leave. And I was like, oh, are you mad because they know what you've done to the kids?
Oh, snap. Okay,
I don't
so
think you ever
let's
told me you said
pause
that.
there for a second. So you've yelled this back at him. So, okay, so in
Because I knew it was already out there. I knew it.
hindsight, so in hindsight, if
Mhm.
hindsight was 2020, do you feel that it was justified in that moment? Or maybe could you have been more tactful?
No, because
I
at this
agree
point,
with Megan.
At this
I
point, he
agree
was
with
cursing
Megan.
at us, and he's hurling accusations that could ruin my career, really.
Did you feel physically threatened by him at this point?
So at this point, yes, and I'm going to get into why. So I say that because I'm just like, fine, you want to unload these accusations that aren't true? I'll give you one that is true, and everyone here is going to know it because my emails are going nowhere, my documents are going nowhere. Now I'm going to have 40 ears hear it.
Also, I feel like that's some form of self-preservation on your part.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
you're like, you're not only self-preservation, but you're advocating for yourself.
Yeah,
I don't think there was anything wrong with what you did, especially knowing what I know, which
Yeah.
you're about to let everyone else in on it. I think that was a smart strategic thing to do
Yeah.
because you're like, I'm not going to let this hide anymore because
Right,
this
and
guy
it's
is
true.
really unsafe.
And
for
going
sure.
off of
I think that's true, but coming in from fresh eyes, I'm like, is there an opportunity for us to have de-escalated? And if those emails and those complaints aren't going somewhere, what is the next step? Is it a police matter? Do we report this somewhere to like a school thing that
Like
comes like an
Department of
independent,
Education.
like
The
an
thing is that
independent thing that does school stuff?
I mean, me and my co-teacher did give cops information about what he was doing, and it also went nowhere because there was no proof. The school would not give over the tapes of the cameras showing him physically. So basically it went nowhere. So we did do our due diligence above that, and it went nowhere. So when he was leaving, he was literally like, I'm not saying what he's saying, but he was like, go F yourself, things like that, like cursing at us, calling us whores. They're like literally going
in front
nuts.
of the 40 people.
In front of 40 people and my two bosses who were laughing in the corner. And I'm like, oh, you want to, okay, what about what you do to the kids? Are you upset that they found out about that? And he barrels towards us. I'm talking about he charges towards us. And I think
like a football player, like he's coming at you.
Yes. So literally I step in front of my co-teacher at this point. And I like kind of like go in front of her because I'm like, all right. And he had four men hold him back. Four.
Okay.
So are those your co-teachers?
Yes.
Or like colleagues that were holding them back?
Colleagues that were holding him back, yes.
Okay, so it took 4 people to hold him back. So I'm curious.
And he's screaming that he's going to get us and kill us, he's saying.
Yeah. So now I'm curious though, if it's taking 4 people to hold him back, he's instantaneously aggressive.
Yes.
Is there an opportunity here that he could be taking methamphetamines?
Or
so
on
everyone
something?
swears
Also,
up and down that yes.
Because pot calling kettle black, it's like you spot it because you got it. So the whole thing about your co-teacher not being sober, where is
that coming from? It's projection.
I would be like, you're a shitty teacher.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a very strange thing to just pop up out of nowhere.
The thing is, at this time, about a year and a half ago, a lot was coming out about teachers being on drugs at work, freshly from COVID,
for sure.
Alcoholism was, so he knew that it was a buzzword that everyone would leech
and a trigger word as well to get
Yeah.
investigations and things like that.
Exactly. Instead of what it really was, which was he just losing his mind. So he basically deterred the whole thing about him screaming at my co-teacher. It was like, oh, you're not sober. So at this point, 4 people hold him back. And so he's literally like spitting, screaming that he's going to kill us.
Ew.
And then at this point, my HR principal comes up to her and I and goes, these are really bad accusations. We're going to have to do an investigation on you.
And we're not doing an investigation on the man that's yelling and almost physically assaulting us?
So what I said was, none of this is true, and no, you're not. Because at this point, I'm seeing red, but I'm still being as professional as I can be. But I'm also like, you're not doing that. You're not doing that. This is crazy that you just ignored this man trying to tear through me and doing this one little thing he said. Got it. So at this point, I was just like, I see the shit that's going on. He is brought out by the security guard, who really is just the IT guy that works there. I can't. And enough said. And he barrels back into the school 3 times before he eventually leaves. At this point, he's outside of the school. We were taken up to the principal's office to stay in there to keep us safe, allegedly. But really, they had us write down what happened. And we're like, no, we're going home and we're going to
report this to the police.
Exactly. So they were like, oh, well, you know, but like trying to like really dwindle us down. We're like, were you there for like very gaslighty? They tried to do us. And they're like, we're gonna have to look into this. But have you guys ever done drugs on the job? Do you do drugs after work? Do you drink on the job? And we were like, no. Are we gonna get back to what we just talked? Like what just happened?
So they were like rerouting you kind of like.
Yes. They were completely covering his ass and their asses. He's outside at this point. We hear him in the window just screaming that he's going to kill us, that we're bitches, that he's waiting for us, that we better watch our backs. Following this, my co-teacher lived with me for a good 2 weeks because she was like scared to go home.
I'd be scared to
So
go home.
was
This guy
he
sounds mental.
Yeah.
Was he allowed back on the campus? Was he fired? How did this play out for him?
Like,
I
this
know.
is insanity.
It gets worse.
Okay, at this point, I'm like, how is this getting worse? We've been assaulted. We've been insulted.
I swear on everything.
We've been kidnapped.
Every day, my co-teacher and I would look at each other and be like, it can't get worse, right? And then it fucking did.
You're in the office with the principals.
Yes.
They're gaslighting you.
Yes.
He's outside screaming. He tries to come back in 3 different times. And then you're like, no, I just want to go home.
Yes. So we leave. The principal walks us to the subway and she's like, all right, yeah, whatever. We'll take care of this. She comes over. Saturday, Sunday rolls around. We hear nothing about any of this. And we're just like, how are we going to go to work tomorrow? I called the principal and she's like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. You know, Mr. Willie Wanker, he's been talked to, you know, he's going to be out for a week, but he'll be back, but we'll do a mediation.
So he was suspended?
Technically, yes, with pay. With pay, I found out. So
For 1 week. For 1 week.
For 1 week. That's correct.
And what kind of message does that send to everyone in the organization?
We were like, no, we're not happy about that. And they're like, well, what do you want us to do? Fire him? We're like, yes, he's a liability around children for a multitude of reasons, not limited to the fact that he attacked us and he's threatening to kill us. But anyway, I was like, were you there?
Valid question, because it sounds like they were not.
Yeah. So the next morning rolls around. It's about 4 a.m. My phone goes off. I get an email from the job saying to all staff, all students, today's a mental health day for the teachers. See you tomorrow. And we're like, what? So we single-handedly shut the school down for a day. But I'm still like,
That's my
what's
girl.
happening? So we're in the dark. I'm emailing the principals and they're like, we cannot legally talk about what happened. And I was like, but I was involved in this. How are you not giving me any update? Also, we're being investigated of drug and alcohol abuse. Like, what are you talking about? And for like 3 months, they would not talk to it. All they said was that their investigation on us has proved that we have not done any drugs or drank any alcohol. Yeah, so that's good. I don't know what the investigation could have been.
Did
but
they
whatever.
actually like piss test you or anything?
No.
So then what investigation was there actually?
He started, so I found out from someone that knew him that he was telling them that if they look on the cameras outside, they'll see me and her smoking outside. But at this point, as you know, Gina, I was a heavy duty cigarette smoker.
Yeah, so you would go out and smoke cigarettes.
So he tried saying that me and her would go out and like smoke like blunts, basically.
You can
Whatever.
smell that on a person.
For 3 months, they would not give us anything on what happened. But in these 3 months, he started like a protest group with the students, the 8th graders. And they started an Instagram about me and my co-teacher saying that we're terrible teachers, that we got him fired for
So he started an Instagram. So now we've crossed over into harmful digital media.
Like cyberbullying.
It was cyberbullying, and it was free. The Instagram handle was like free Mr. Willy Wonka, basically. And it was basically an uprising of students to affect me and my co-teacher. But the thing is that none of them knew what happened. None of the parents knew what happened. None of the students knew. So he would also, aside from his Instagram, he would have the students for a good 2-3 weeks. Once the bell rang at 7:30 or whatever, he would have them get up, those like signs, like picketing signs, and like free Mr. And they would go around the
what?
school. What do you mean?
What are we freeing him from?
I don't know. Freeing him, like
Persecution?
Yeah, for him to come back. So he started saying that basically me and her lied about him and all this stuff. No teachers came to our defense. No one said that's not what happened. There was one chant they did in particular that was crazy, and it was no Mr. Wanker, no work. No Mr. Wanker, no work. Meaning they would not do school if he was not there. We've got a picket line
trying to get
protesting you
Willy
and your
Wanker back to
co-teacher.
work,
Right.
protesting to get this man who assaults, verbally abuses, and in general
Threatens.
is a total wanker.
Yeah.
We've got school kids
10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds.
petitioning to have this wanker back at school. Wow. I don't even know where to park that at this point.
Yeah, it was really hard. And then a few of the teachers were helping this Instagram and were recording it. Point where one of the teachers recording the picketing forgot to cut off her video at one point, and she went up to the principal and was like, "Oh, isn't this cool?" The HR woman, Miss Krabs, and I messaged it to Miss Krabs and was like, "You're in this video, just so you know." And she was like, "Oh my God, what?" So the person was there, and I was like, "I know who it is. It's very clearly this teacher. It's her voice in it." And it was suddenly deleted, but not the Instagram, just the video, and they cropped out her at the end.
Is the Instagram still active or has been taken down?
Yes, it's still active.
No, shut up.
Swear to God.
Question.
Yes.
Back to the actual like chronology of this. How long was he ended up suspended with pay in total?
3 months. 3 months.
3
So
months. Okay.
during
With
this
pay.
time that he was harassing us. He would be outside of the school grounds waiting for us, walking after us to the subway. He would get the kids at like 10 in the morning or whatever after their process, and he would stand on, I shit you not, like a box that like you
Like a
fucking have-
soapbox?
Yeah, a soapbox, literally like a fruit stand box, and he would stand on it and rap to the kids about what happened. It was just somebody in power who was a man yelling at my co-teacher and going nuts, and people okaying it. That's really what it came down to. So he would literally be there every day talking to the kids, and we would have to walk by to go to the subway and the bus and walk by this, and people, like kids cursing at us, screaming at us, parents hated us. About a month after, he's still on suspension. We're still not being told anything. Her and I have our cigarette break. And as we're walking back into the school, we're crossing in front of the school. There's like a street, and I hear a car like turn on. And it's also like 8 in the morning. So I'm like, that's weird. And it was like, and it was like speeding. And her and I are halfway through the middle of the street, crossing it. And a car tries to run us over, and it's blasting the song that he wrote for the school. And it's him in the car. It sideswipes us. So yeah,
But nobody was hurt, right?
nobody was hurt, but he was blasting his own rap song about the school as he was in the car. So we go in and we're like, we've had enough. We're done. I'm not doing this. I literally walk into the principal's office and she's like, oh, I can't talk. And I was like, no, I'm going to talk to you. We almost got run over by him. Like, what is happening? And she's like, well, it was off school grounds, so we can't say anything. And I was like, actually, no, it was like right on the corner of the school. And I know there's a camera. So I took a picture of the camera and I sent it to the IT guy who doubles as a security guard, apparently. And he goes to the camera and he gets the video for me. He pulls it for me of the car trying to run us over.
And can you clearly see who's driving it in that?
You can't,
the
his
video?
license plate isn't it. It is him.
Okay, but
so-
now you've got actual proof that this person is trying to assault you.
So I'm just sitting in the office and I'm just like, I'm not going anywhere. I called the cops already. Like somebody said they were going to kill us and then try to run us over. So she was like, you have duties though. You have a duty as a teacher. You have to go back to your class. And I was like, I'm waiting for the police to come right now because you guys should have filled out an incident report when he tried to attack us a month prior or whatever. And they were like, oh, well, the cops came. And then I found out that the HR woman is not only friends with this crazy man, she's friends with the cop who comes in. She talks to the cop first before talking to us, before he talks to us, which doesn't make any sense because she was not involved in this. So the cops come, they take our report. Yeah, he's not allowed like within a certain amount of space between us. So at this point, he's finally told that he's fired from the job. maybe 5-10 minutes go by after he's fired and after the school sends a thing. What they forgot to do, because they're idiots, is they forgot to suspend his social media for the school. So he had all of the information, all parents, all faculty. He had our information, where we lived, everything. Basically what he did was he sent out this insane message that went straight to the kids and families and all that stuff, saying, who got him fired, me and her, that none of it happened, that we lied, and the admin believed it. We won't happen in front of 40 people, but whatever. Basically, completely fucked us over here, completely. Like more than before. Now we had parents know who it was.
How many people were spammed with this? Like, what is the number?
Every single person. We had about 100 kids in each grade level. It was
So it's close to 1,000 people if you include their family, like if they were sending it to the
about
parents and the students.
Maybe about 400 students, then their parents, then all admin, all faculty, all the board.
Yeah. So
Cursing
you're a minimum reach of 1,000 people.
Yeah. And he's like, guys, I need to rally behind me, stick up for me so I get my job back. And at this point in the year, it's a point where you really can't get another teaching job at this point without, questions being asked. And also, it's my fucking job. Like, I'm gonna stay.
And you haven't
here.
done anything wrong.
And I haven't done anything wrong. But you know what? Now, so her and I really get like blacklisted. Like none of the teachers will even look at us. They won't talk to us. They won't help us. Not like we need any help, but like we were in the office, the big teachers lounge. Everyone was there, and they would just ignore us. We'd be like, "Oh, hi, can you
And like
pass me?"
this would be a really good time for them, for some people to like crowd around you in solidarity or
No.
Okay, so you're getting, just to confirm here, you're getting no support from any
None.
of the other faculty. If we circle back again. Okay, so if we look at this, were any of them in a situation where they were being assaulted, or were they threatened, or were they scared that if they came forward, they would get themselves into hot water?
Yeah, basically, even though he wasn't there, her and I were like, people you couldn't talk to. Like they had their own weird clique. His best friend was brought on to do his job. So the best friend,
nepotism.
Yeah, 100%.
and also, do you think there was maybe an element with the teachers, and I'm not sticking up for them, but that they were just like, it's like
right. Not my monkey, not my circus.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to get involved. This is so like, which
I
and in all like fairness, like I get that. I don't know. I might have been the same way. I might have been not publicly siding with you, but maybe, I would talk to you privately and be like, I saw what happened, whatever. But I don't know how I would react in a similar
we
situation.
weren't asking to be friends with anyone. We would just be like, hey, can you hand me that stapler? And they would ignore us, talk to us. And I've never really spoken to her before, but she seemed nice enough to her and I one day. And she's like, what exactly happened with him? Like, I feel really bad for you guys. We gave her a summary, like I'm giving you guys, where like everyone else was there. So, what exactly happened? And I was like, this, that, and the other. It's common knowledge what happens. Her and I were, and now at this point it's Christmas, because I remember it was pajama day. We're all in, like, I was in a onesie, my co-teacher was in like pajamas, and my principal, who just, oh my God, she wore super tight outfits, like very unprofessional. Just like she had on a skin
like
tight,
a negligee. Tell me if it was
worse. It was worse. It was a skin tight zip up one piece, and there were candy canes across the ass. So she sends me and my co-teacher to the office, and he's yelling at us. He has us sign a document that the lawyers had written up for us, saying that we can never speak about what happened at the school while employed at the school, or we would get fired immediately. And we were like, we didn't say anything wrong. And then they wrote in, it said that the school does not condone gossiping, and we were gossiping. And my friend was like, gossiping about ourselves, what happened in public? What? And they were like, yeah, so we had to sign that so we could not talk about what happened at all. I think they saw that we were like, no, we're right. And this woman that was trying to be nice went back to them and was like, I felt really uncomfortable. They were talking about it. You
so
fucking
she basically
ass.
backstabbed you.
Which
She like got information from you and then like tattled on
But
you.
it was public knowledge. Everyone was there. Like we didn't say anything that happened after, nothing. We didn't even say he tried to run over. It was just, so technically we're gag ordered. And at this, again, it was hard to get a teaching job. So when I could not leave. And also at this point, it made me feel stronger in a sense, because I was like, fuck it. I'm coming every day. I don't care who doesn't like me. I'm going to do my job better than ever before, so that no one could catch me slipping. That's when he started like writing rap songs about us, like diss songs about her and I.
It's too ridiculous.
which
And where would he publish them? And who would listen to them?
on SoundCloud. All the
And
students.
who would
He sent it all
listen
the
to
students.
them?
All the students, because you could tell it was all the students because the comments are like fire emojis. They're like, yeah. Okay, so bring back the old principal who's crazy and single white femaling me.
Yes, bring her back into the
She-
mix.
She became a principal at a nearby school. She's
Okay.
still calling me, asking me to join. I'm like, no. I find out that she employs him. She knew what
She knew
happened
what
because she left me a voicemail one day saying, like, I'm so sorry he did that to you. I knew he was always crazy. You don't deserve that. I'm on your side. Correct. She would not stop calling it. So eventually I had to change my number. So then I found out that she, oh my God, this is so crazy. This like blew me away. Fired for employing him.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Because the HR person there was like, something's off about this guy, and pulled his name and his records that were expunged, and they figured out all the shit he did, and they fired
Was there
her
more
for-
than what was understood there to be?
yes, allegedly, yes.
So like all of the other things that had happened previously and
Yes.
during.
Not even things involving me and my co-teacher. It was about the SWAT team coming, the kidnapping,
Yeah, the kidnapping
everything.
of
fights that he's gotten into, like crazy stuff. And they fired her from her new job for employing him and not looking
yeah,
over his
as they
fingerprints.
should.
And they fired him. So now she took the rap for him. Our life is hell. Everything's hell. Working is horrible. They keep getting us in trouble for random things we didn't do. Like they were like, oh, we did some lesson plans. And we're like, we did. And then they'd like delete it from the documents, everything, like just to get us written up.
Mhm.
So
So it
anyway,
was like
so
a smear campaign.
yeah. So my co-teacher really tried to hang on, and she left, I think 5 weeks before the end of the school year. She was just having really bad anxiety. Her commute was longer than mine. Hers was like 4 hours combined on a good day. Like I was going to stop teaching forever after this happened, after I left this last job.
Which
And
I
then I got-
encouraged you to do. I was
Yeah,
like, stop
and-
teaching.
Career change 101.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I got a call from this school, and I was just like, we'll see. And it was like 7 minutes away from my new place. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to leave the state. Let me go for it. And I love my job now. I'm very like, I feel really happy there.
And
Yeah,
I think it's
granted-
important to note that you took a significant pay cut
Oh, yeah. I'm getting paid about half of what I got paid before.
at the crazy stalker school.
Yes.
So,
Mhm.
okay, so looking back, is
Mm-hmm.
there anything that you feel you could have done differently other than leaving or running for your life? Do you feel like there's anything that you could have done differently to maybe make the situation less bad?
No, I mean, I think if anything, I did the minimum only because I was like thoroughly like twice a week talking to my therapist about what happened. And he was just kind of like, just go in, keep your head down, get your money and go. You are not going to be run out from anywhere. So yeah, I mean, I was pleasant with people, even though they wouldn't even look twice at me. I just felt like, okay, well, this is my job. I'm going to do it. And I don't care if the people don't like me because they're wrong.
Out of every bad toxic experience we have in the workplace, something kind of good comes out of it.
Granted, as my therapist says, my co-teacher and I are now trauma bonded by what happened. End of this story, basically, the craziest thing happened, which was there was a graduation all teachers had to be a part of. So 5 a.m, one of my co-teachers called me up. He was pretty nice to me, and he was like, hey, Miss Krabs called me and said that the guy is going to show up. I don't know if she told you yet. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, yeah, he's going to be the guest speaker, the surprise speaker.
What? So
He
he's been fired. He's been fired at this point.
Uh-huh.
And now he's making a repeat appearance, a cameo appearance, into stage left as the special guest speaker.
So we're still like making him out to be this, scorned war hero. So 20 minutes before, so I know this and I'm not going. I didn't tell anyone yet. I was like, okay, I'm on my way. I didn't tell him. I didn't say anything. I went right back to bed. 20 minutes before all the teachers are supposed to be there, which again, it's an hour and a half away from my house. Miss Krabs calls me and is like, hey, we didn't know this or else we would have given you a heads up, but he's going to pop up and do like a surprise guest speaker thing for the graduating class.
They knew.
You don't have, yeah, of course, no one just randomly is like, hey, I'm going to guest speak at the graduation, because also they could be like, no.
You have an agenda. There's like a timesheet. Like there's a whole thing
Also,
happening
wasn't
for a
he-
graduation.
Was he not told to stay certain amount of
Yes,
feet
Feet
away
from
from
the
you and the school?
yes, that's correct. So that's why she called and was like, look, he can come if you're not there, but if you're there, he can't come, and the students are going to be really upset if he's not there. And I was like, isn't it supposed to be a surprise? So they wouldn't know what they wouldn't have. So she was like, okay. And I was like, you know what? Enjoy graduation. And then that day I sent in my letter saying I'm not gonna resume my role, basically. Like a month before though, when my co-teacher quit, they told me like, you know, you don't have a place here next year. And I was like, I don't want a place here. So I sent them a nice little letter saying like, I hope they learned from the mistakes they made on how they treated people. I hope that, you know, the school is safe for the students next year and they really take into account who they hire. And I hope they are okay with the decisions they've made and how they've treated me and my co-teacher. Yeah, so I kept it very professional, but I was also like, I really hope it's a learning experience. He's at graduation now. They decide to live stream it on the website, on their Facebook, on Instagram.
Why?
Because he's the star. I mean, so
He's a charismatic leader. Does this sound a little culty to anyone? Megan, it's being live streamed. And we're all saying, what in the actual fuck is happening?
I am watching it sober. I'm watching it in my bed and I'm sending it to my co-teacher. I'm like, please watch. She's like, Megan, I'm thinking about it. I'm like gagging because I feel like he's gonna bring something. I was like, I got you. I'm gonna watch it. Because I'm also a person that like, if it's gonna happen, I'm gonna watch it. Because if you're gonna bring me up, I want to be there and hear it. You're not gonna talk about me where I can't hear it. He mentioned us the whole time.
What?
Yeah.
Because that
okay, so you're watching the live streaming. You're like, what in the actual fuck is going on? And he mentions you and your co-teacher like the whole time, like basically saying like, you know, why I got fired because of
he starts, but not only so on the graduation bill, it's a 5 to 10 minute special guest appearance right at the end. So I'm watching it and I know he's at the end and he just walks up to the stage and it's like, no, it's my time. It's the principal hands him the thing. And they were like, change of time. He wants to go now. He can't wait to see you guys. Everyone starts literally, parents are on their chairs, like screaming for him. Like, this is what this guy's
How many of the parents was he shagging at this point?
Probably all of them. So he gets up there and everyone's losing their minds. Kids are chanting his name. It's like 9 a.m. And I'm just like, this is a joke.
Wanka. Come on, Gina, you gotta do it with me. Wanka. The charismatic cult leader.
The charismatic cult leader.
Exactly. It was hard, but he gets up there on the stage and he starts, like, people are chanting. He's like, guys, calm down. I'll be here all night. Like, so it's supposed to be a 5 to 10 minute long thing. He made it about 30, 35 minutes. He gets on the stage and then starts, you know, doing this whole spiel on his fucking soapbox. And then he starts rapping about us. It was a whole rap about me and her. Meanwhile, we could not say anything about him, and we never did after that. Like, we had to file a document. Anyway, so he's up there for about 35 minutes rapping. The crowd's going wild. He does like an encore rap. He starts rapping the school song that he tried to run us over when he was playing. Like, I can't.
So what ended up happening to all of the administration?
Oh, they're
you
still
left,
there.
your co-teacher left. What?
No, they're still there. I just found
They're
out that
still currently in positions of
I just
power.
found out that Miss Krabs, the HR principal, she did this last year too, where she'll only come into work 2 days a week because she lives in Connecticut. And the board found out and they demoted her. And she's trying to keep it hush hush, and she's still getting paid the same amount of money. But now she has to come in 3 to 4 days a week, and they're not calling her the principal, they're calling her just like head of operations.
That's fucking scary to have people like that, like in charge of kids.
And during this time that I was leaving that job, I ended up moving because I knew, well, there were a bunch of reasons why I moved, but one of the big reasons, to be honest with you, and I hate to sound like scared of people, but one of the bigger reasons I moved was because I knew that my address was on file at that school.
Where is Mr. Willy Wonka right now? Do we know?
I know that he's coaching the kids at the school again. He's not a teacher, but he on the weekends coaches them in basketball. Other than that, he is not allowed to teach anywhere in New York or substitute teach. So I'm not sure how he's making money, but he has come out with a music video recently.
You were
okay, but circling all the way back again. What now? I'm curious to know if you were to go back and tell someone that may be experiencing a similar situation to this, like a super extra toxic workplace, what would you want to say to them?
Oh, I would say so my dad used to be a cop, and one thing he's always ingrained in me is like, keep receipts of everything. What you
document everything.
when you like what you say in a conversation to someone, that means shit unless it's recorded, obviously. Also, side note, in New York, if you want to record a conversation, only one party has to know. If there's two people, that party could be yourself.
Oh, how interesting.
Just so you know.
That ties
So
back to Nicola's being fired
I
because
have
she was
no
fired for
right
recording
conversation.
somebody.
Definitely, my advice would be everything should be written. Even if you have a conversation in person, you go back to your computer immediately. You say, hey, circling back to our conversation that we had, or prior to what we spoke about before, here's the outlines. And another thing I would do is document everything, even if it's a document within yourself, even if it's notes. Everything should have a date, a time, everything. The second thing is when you see a red flag, trust your gut. Trust your gut.
I think it's a really good way to highlight that toxicity. And I think the whole teacher thing is being talked about a lot more, especially since the pandemic happened, but toxicity is everywhere. It is literally every industry, every level, whether it's C-suite levels or beginner teachers, like your co-teacher was not as seasoned as you were. It is literally everywhere. And I think I would agree with you that I should have listened to what people were saying.
Yeah.
When I first came on the job that me and Nicola met at, because they were telling me who they were. I just
They told you
wasn't
in the
listening.
interview who they were.
They were telling me.
Mhm.
And I just was like, oh, they're being cute. It's nothing I can't handle. You can do prevention. You could try to mitigate things, but a lot of things don't really become clear until you're in it.
Yeah, it's true.
Or like
Honestly.
us when we left.
Or things really gel once you have the hindsight. Of course.
One thing I learned from Gina that I'll never forget, that she taught me like 5 years when I didn't get it at the time, is it's not personal. And it took me so long to learn like what she meant by that. And it's like people's projections that they put on you and them treating you like an asshole. Sometimes it's not right, but it's not personal. It's because they're unhappy.
That's Megan's toxic workplace story.
Thank you for joining us today. If you would like to share your story, we would love to hear from you.
Also, leaving a review helps us create more content because it shows us there's an interest in this topic.
For those of our listeners who do better with reading, we have closed caption available on YouTube.
See you next week, same time and same place.